Allegheny Journal has found Jonathan and Kelly Vaught, and we're here at Living Stones Ministries, and we're at the beginning of a benefit for this couple who wants to return to Uganda. Jonathan, you have a ministry. This is a very important thing in your life to both of you. Why Uganda?
Well, first of all, call me Smooth. That's what everybody else calls me. Jonathan is my given name, but I've been called Smooth ever since I was a little kid. And so these days people call me Pastor Smooth. But we've been tied to Uganda for a long time. I actually proposed to my wife Kelly in Uganda along the Nile River in 2001. And God is just kind of always, like our hearts have just always been tied there ever since then.
And Jonathan, many people in the United States are probably not aware, but you're right on the equator.
That's right.
And most of us think, okay, the equator, it's like Panama. It's extremely hot and, lions, tigers, and bears. But the truth is the average Ugandan elevation is in excess of 3,000 feet.
That's right.
And so another thing the United States citizens may not know is that it was a British colony for a while, and that many citizens are aware of Christianity and/or Christians. Is that accurate?
That is accurate. Yes, they. If you look up the statistics, they tell you somewhere around roughly the last census said roughly 84% of the country is Christian, but they don't really. I met people who say they're Christians, and then you ask them about who is Jesus, and they've literally never heard of Jesus.
So is this your job?
A big part of my job, I do a lot of church planting and evangelism, and then I have a master's degree in theology, and so a lot of what I do is actually training village pastors who have no education. That's a lot of what I do. Not all of it, but it's a big part of it.
Kelly, I would imagine that's a small part of it, because this kind of commitment is so unusual. And Jonathan, or Kelly, one more time, why Uganda?
That's a very good question. You got a good answer for that one?
People like you in Nevada, and we need you here in Virginia.
Yeah.
Why Uganda?
Well, I think that the people that God has for us and our family is in Uganda, and so, we tell people often that we are about a decade into a 2-year commitment, and after living in a place for a decade, after making the roots and the relationships and calling it home for a decade, we've realized that that's where our roots are, and we've realized that that's the community that God has us in, and that's where the next work is for us, and that's where our family feels like they're at home.
Yeah.
We tried to do some research on Uganda, and Smooth, thanks for putting up with our lack of knowledge of that.
Sure, absolutely.
It looks like the average GDP of the citizenry is like $800. So what that really means for most of us who understand economics is that you have a substantial number of poor people.
That's correct.
Who you will be ministering to.
That's correct.
Number one, that's a unique calling, and number two, why is the GDP what it is? Is there not enough farmland or manufacturing? What do you think the state of affairs is?
Most of it's 80% unemployment rate, 80-something percent.
80?
The unemployment rate's very, very high. It might be a bit lower now, but it's been in the 80s last time I checked.
Wow.
But the reason that is the majority of people live deep in the village. There's no work in the village, and they wouldn't consider themselves poor. You might go to a family, and he's the patriarch of the family has 6, 7, 8 head of cattle, and he's got 20 chickens running around and ducks, and he's got 8 acres of land, and they farm it, and it's subsistence farming. He's not farming to sell it. They farm, they mill it, they store it for the dry season when things are not growing. We have 2 rainy seasons, 2 dry seasons a year.
Okay.
And so they wouldn't consider themselves poor, but they don't have any money. And so that's where the numbers can be a little bit deceiving, because what you and I might consider as someone who's very poor, he might consider himself actually very wealthy.
But substantially rural.
Yes.
And yet, when we look at the geography of the country, it looks like there's water all around.
Yes.
I mean, huge lakes and tributaries to the north and to the south. Oddly enough, Uganda claims most of Lake Victoria.
It does, yes.
There's just a little bit in Kenya. I said, I've got to be ready for
and
this
a
interview.
little bit in Tanzania as well.
Yes.
So, and we have an abundance of water. Water is a problem in some remote areas, because to get to the water sometimes is deep down, and again, people in the villages don't consider themselves poor necessarily, but they don't have money, and digging a borehole to get water from the ground takes money. Medical care is a problem, because again, they need money to go to the doctor. But in Uganda, we have a saying that nobody dies from starvation. Nobody dies. They might die from malnourishment, but they don't die from starvation.
And English is very common, having been a British colony, right?
That's correct. English. So there are over 170, I believe. Somebody can fact check me on that. Dialects in Uganda.
Wow.
And so when they gained independence and had to choose a national language, rather than showing favoritism to one particular language, they chose English as the national language. They just made Swahili the second national language.
And my next question is, how much of Swahili do you understand?
I speak almost no Swahili,
Okay.
because where we live, no one speaks Swahili.
Okay.
They speak Luganda and Lusoga, which are the languages are almost the same. And I am proficient enough in Luganda, Lusoga to get through a day if I have to. But because the town that we live in, that we have been living in, we're moving outside of town now, but the town that we have been living in, is a melting pot of people from all over the country.
Okay.
And so they all come from different dialects, and so then everyone uses English. And so it's very difficult to learn a foreign language when everybody around you is just speaking English.
I see.
But when you go to the villages, almost nobody speaks English. And so I've tried to become proficient in Luganda, Lusoga, because usually between the two of those, usually you can find somebody who speaks that. But Swahili is mainly Tanzania and in Kenya. And in the eastern parts of Uganda, they speak Swahili, but not many.
And Kelly, you're a big part of this too. I mean, married in Uganda. I mean, you must find that area of the world just as attractive as Jonathan. I mean, and
Maybe more so.
And more so. And you said this is the second year of a 10-year commitment, or you said the 10th year of a second-year commitment.
Yeah.
10th year of a 2-year commitment, that's for sure.
That's
and engaged, not married in Uganda. But yeah, Uganda is a beautiful country. The people are wonderful, and you will hear Uganda called the Pearl of the Nile, and there's a reason for that. I mean, it's just beautiful. I mean, gardens are abundant, the water is beautiful, and the weather is nice year-round, and the people just can't.
You can't beat the people. The people are the best.
Well, we were curious. We had heard about this benefit. We know you're very busy this evening. It's a great 2-day benefit in your honor and for your benefit. And we thank you very much for taking the time to speak with the Journal.
We're really glad to do it. Thanks for being here. Thanks for interviewing us.